Okay, hello everyone. This time I'm going to be in conversation with Edgar in Colombia and Luis at the University of Florida about a very interesting virtual exchange. But before we get stuck in and talk about that, please, Edgar, can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're logging in from and what your role is at your institution.
Okay, my name is Edgar Martinez. I work in Universidad Autónoma de Occidente in Cali, Colombia. I work in the faculty of architecture, urbanism, and design. I'm an industrial designer, and I have a master's in interior design. I work here like 10 years now, and I work in a lot of classes and courses about interior design, experience design, semiotics of design. So that's my background.
Thank you, Edgar. And Luis, come in, please.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Luis Mejia. I'm originally from Colombia, as a matter of fact. And I'm an assistant professor at the University of Florida in the Department of Interior Design. I'm an industrial designer as well, with a master's in product development and doctoral studies in human sciences, more specifically in interior design. I teach design studio and I teach advanced communication courses. So technology stuff. I do research in pedagogical practices and using technology advancement or technology gimmicks, if you want to call it that way, into pedagogical practices. That's the reason of VR stuff that you can see down there on my office.
Thank you, Luis. Now, you guys have undertaken a very interesting virtual exchange surrounding the themes of interior design, architecture, and you decided on a restaurant. Can you outline your project for us so we can understand a bit more about this virtual exchange and how it works?
Absolutely. So when we approach the project, first of all, I think we believe multicultural exchange is very important for design disciplines. So it's really relevant for design disciplines. So we were thinking, okay, how can we get, like any design discipline, the core of the design discipline is studio practice. So studio practice is where students, they develop, it's a project-based learning practice in which students receive projects, hypothetical projects, and they have to come out with design solutions to those projects. With that said, we wanted to work on a project that required cultural exchange between different parties. Okay, one thing that it's very frequent in design is designers, we have to acquire information from clients in order to do design developments and give that design developments to the clients. Okay, regardless of the design specificity. So if we're talking about architecture, we receive information from clients, we give buildings back. If we talk about interior design, we receive information, we give interior environments back or built environments back. The same happens in product design. Okay, we get feedback from clients and we deliver products. That's pretty much it. So we worked on a project that was, the first time we did it, it was 2023. We worked on a project that it was a restaurant. So we gave our students a floor plan of a restaurant, of an existing building, and they had to play parts of clients and consumers, clients and designers in being able to develop that space. It was a restaurant that required that it was, for example, students in the States designed for a restaurant that was going to be placed in Colombia, and students in Colombia designed for a restaurant that it was going to be placed in the States. And I think one interesting thing to mention is that they were not all interior designers. We had product designers, we had interactive media designers, and more lately, we even have graphic designers.
Yeah.
Yes, Edgar, did you want to add something on the back of what Luis was saying?
Yeah, two things. I think there is important to learn about the context when you are designing, not only the consumer, but or the product, but you need the context, and that particular project that we did was really good because they have to know where to put the things in the restaurant, and you have a city that you've never been, so you need to understand the context, and I love that. And the other thing is, with the different disciplines, we have something that I think is great, and is that the medium that where when they have to show us the results, the medium is always different because the different disciplines has different ways to show us the projects. So if you are a graphic designer, you have a lot of illustrations and different things. You don't have always to do the rendering or something that really 3D based. You can do another things, and you have to understand the context and the cultural ways to understand that part.
Let me go back a second, because you mentioned you wanted your students to understand the context. So how did you do that? Where did you start? What was your starting point for undertaking a project with all different designers like this?
No, the first part of all the projects is a meeting from my students and Luis' students. So they have to acquire some knowledge about what they have in their town or in their university, and that is the first contact is really important for that, because they think, no, there's a couple of students, that's easy, but it's not easy because the schedules that Luis thought about it, the language barrier is really hard. And
yes, I wanted to ask about that. Save that for a moment. But
okay.
So Luis and Edgar, your students, what I'm hearing is your students kind of had to interview each other to get that information.
Yes.
So that's the exchange, isn't it? They needed each other to extract that information from each other. Yeah.
Yes, and I believe for example, we as educators, what we do is we throw them there. We don't give them the information. They need to start looking for the information. So, for example, when they start, if you go on Google, you Google Colombia and Cali, and you will retrieve information. But that information is completely different than when you're speaking with someone who actually lives there. Okay? Absolutely. Because when you're speaking with someone like, hey, tell me what's a day on your life? What do you do in the morning? What do you do?
You won't find that on Google.
No. You don't find that on Google. So,
absolutely.
And the way we manage this is we create groups. So we create teams on the two universities, and we exchange all the emails of them. And we'll tell them, okay, guys, now you guys need to reach out to your counterpart. Okay. Yeah. And to us, what they provide us is snapshots, screenshots, whatever, that verify, that certify that they're meeting. That is our requirement. Okay. So they have to do like a diary, if you want to speak at it that way, of the exchanges that they're having with their counterpart overseas. Okay. Right. But it's interesting because, for example, I have a couple of images in which they not only interview themselves when they're retrieving information and when they're doing the problem framing phase, but they also, once they start designing, they start sharing their designs to see, hey, what do you think of this? Am I being accurate with this representation of a restaurant that it's going to be in Colombia? And maybe they will receive feedback like, hey, yes, you really nailed it. It's really good. Or they could receive feedback like, no, that doesn't represent us.
So again, you're creating a need for them to contact each other to understand further context.
Yes. Now, in class, for example, when they ask me questions, I will say, that's a question not for me. You need to reach. You need to reach out to them, and receive the like. Hey, professor, I don't know what type of food or whatever they like there. Or, I don't know.
Find out.
I have the same. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you're handing it over to the students own the projects. It's up to them to decide when to meet, how to meet, what tools to
Yes.
use. But Edgar, you were mentioning something I wanted to pick up on,
Okay.
some of the challenges, and you talked about language. So what happened?
Yeah.
What language was the lingua franca during the exchange, or what happened?
Well, we try to do it in English. All the briefs and the presentations are in English. But my students not always manage to speak in English. They have English courses in here, but not it's not good. So one thing is to know the phrases and the verbs, and another other thing is like meeting like us, working conversationally. So that's very difficult for my students. Not all of them, but they are always thinking about they speak Spanish. No, they don't speak Spanish. Sometimes
Sometimes
Luis's
because
students, yeah, sometimes,
since this
but
is
it's not.
Florida.
Yeah, it's Florida, but it's not that simple.
No, I know, I
And
know. It's northern Florida,
yeah,
but but it's interesting because I've seen interactions between them that one of them will take the lead and it's going to be the translator because
yeah, yeah,
if he or she knows a little bit of Spanish, then he or she will be the translator for the overall group, and my main takeaway is they figure out the way, like
yeah,
they, they figure out their strategy or their way of operate to be able to
yeah.
communicate.
They are using AI, for example, to translate. They're using that a lot. In this particular project, they are using AI.
It's interesting because you're talking about interior designers, graphic designers, architects, but actually there's also really important element, which is language, which is
Yeah,
just so fantastic. So they're learning some Spanish, they're learning some English, I mean, for sure, and they're finding ways to communicate, because ultimately they're going to be working globally anyway, aren't they? So
yeah.
I mean, this is just a perfect way to illustrate that. um, so you in one iteration you decided to give them the restaurant as a topic to create. You've done this more than once, haven't you? Have you changed it at all? Have you had other things that you've asked them to design?
Do you want to
Yes.
answer, Edgar, or do you want me to answer?
Oh,
I don't
do it,
mind.
Okay,
please do it.
so the first iteration was a restaurant. The second iteration, something really important happened in Colombia in 2024, in Cali in particular. So there was a conference on biodiversity, which is the United Nations COP16 biannual conference that took place in Cali, Colombia, and they were selected because of their biodiversity stuff. So
Yeah.
we framed a project in which they were required to design a museum that was going to showcase Colombia. It could be like a traveling, experiential, whatever museum that will be showcasing Colombia. That was 2024. This year, we're working on a hospitality lobby hotel. It is an experiential hospitality lobby hotel that my students, they're designing a hotel that is going to be placed in Cali, in Colombia, and
Hmm.
Edgar students are doing the other way
The
around.
opposite. Yeah.
So I think one thing to point out is one of the things that we've somehow weed throughout the three projects is the experiential interactive aspect of it,
Yeah.
because we wanted to be gimmicky, we wanted to be tech savvy, we wanted to be an experiential interactive space, regardless if it's the restaurant, the hotel lobby, or the museum.
Or the museum. I have a final question. You clearly have an enduring partnership, and this works because you're doing it again, and presumably you're going to continue to do this. But your
So
circumstances are quite different, aren't they? Because I know at the University of Florida, I've spoken to Paloma, and you have quite a thriving, you have a lot of support within your institution to get these virtual exchanges off the ground, and your university is doing really well. But Edgar, in Colombia, that's not the case. Are you pretty much on your own here doing this? And what motivates you to keep going without, if you don't have all this support?
Well, it is difficult in here, but I think the motivation is like to make my students know something that enhance the vision of design. I love that. I love to talk design. I love to speak with my students about design. But we have a program in here to international exchange. Luis was here speaking with them, but nothing go to fruition. So it is difficult. I think we did this. We are doing this, and we are going to looking forward for another one, because we love this stuff. We think that is very, very important. I love my students to know something about other cultures and approaching their views, their projects with that. So it's more like a love child, this thing.
So you're doing it for the love of it, and
yeah.
What about you, Luis? What would you like to say in relation to that?
I would like to say a couple of things. First, everything starts with a nice relationship, and I think
Absolutely.
the relationship started with Edgar and I building on this, and it has been our baby, that it has been growing. Like, for example, the first time we were 3 universities, as a matter of fact. Then by the second time, only Edgar and I did it. Then this third time, we were going to include a Mexican university. So it was going to be very interesting, but they have scheduling conflicts. Let's hope, fingers crossed, we're going to get them on board for the next iteration. As I was mentioning, the first thing is about relation. It's because this goes beyond the institution, or this goes beyond the resources of the institution.
Yes, virtual
Agreed.
exchange
Agree.
that.
This is about the two faces that are leading their students to do something. So this is not necessarily about UF or Universidad Autónoma de Occidente. This is more about Edgar and Luis doing something for their students, that yes, they're working as ambassadors of their institutions, but it starts with the direct contact. And it's about building trust with your partner wise. Like, for example, I know that next year I'll be reaching out to Edgar. Hey, Edgar, are we going to do this upcoming year? And I know it requires planning from him. It requires planning from me. It requires sacrifices, but it's worth the effort to see this going to our students. And if we're able to get Mexico on board, it will be fantastic. If we're able to get anyone on board, it will be fantastic. And that's the way I see it. Colombia and the States, we're pretty much in the same time zone.
Yes, that's helpful, isn't it? When it's
it is.
Yes,
very hard.
Yes. We tried to do it once with India and Sri Lanka, and oh my goodness, it was so complicated because it was difficult. The time difference was difficult.
Okay. Thank you, Luis. Edgar, can I give the final word, any final reflections to you, and then I'll let you get on with your day?
We love what we're doing. I think this is a great opportunity for our students. I really like the way they are expanding their vision of the world. And I think that's really, really important for them. And I'm proud of that. So I'm glad I'm continuing to working with this. It is really, really invigorating.
Oh, thank you for sharing your time with me today. Many, many thanks, and so many congratulations on an enduring partnership and successful virtual exchange.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
It was very, very nice.